Paul stood at the edge of the bustling cafe, feeling a bit lost. The place was packed with people chatting and laughing. It was an outing organized by work, aimed at helping everyone connect. Employees mingled in small groups, sharing stories and jokes. Still, Paul felt isolated in a sea of voices. No one knew how anxious Paul felt inside. It seemed like everyone else belonged, while Paul's heart raced and palms were sweaty. Paul wanted to join the conversations but didn't know how to start. Many people found work events refreshing. They connected with new friends and learned more about each other. But for some, like Paul, these situations heightened anxiety. The pressure to fit in was overwhelming. People exchanged pleasantries and smiles. Meanwhile, Paul noticed a weight on the chest, feeling as if all eyes were on them. What if someone asked a question? What if the conversation fell flat? The fear of looks and laughter made it hard even to breathe. Paul wanted to be part of the fun but felt trapped by insecurity and fear. This scene is familiar to many. Whether it is a work event, a family gathering, or a chance meeting with neighbors, people often experience similar fears. The anxiety of speaking up can cause anyone to hesitate. Some may have felt lonely or shy in big groups. Others may have struggled to find common topics to discuss. At times, it felt like everyone else was confident but left alone with worries. The truth is that it is common to feel this way, and it happens to most people at one time or another. These social struggles do not just belong to anyone. They belong to everyone. When we face these situations, it is easy to think we are alone. However, many people share similar experiences. At parties, people with familiar faces can still feel anxious and unsure. Simple chats can spark fear in many hearts. Every smile or laugh can feel distant. Yet, beneath the surface, we see a whole world of similar stories. This creates a beautiful chance to remember human connection. By sharing and supporting each other, we can help ourselves grow as individuals. Understanding this truth is the first step to breaking down walls of isolation. The situation brings stress, yet it also offers an opportunity. Through these common experiences, we find ourselves. When Paul stands at the cafe's edge, we see ourselves too. Relatable feelings form the base of shared emotions. They lay the groundwork for learning and improving social skills. If Paul can find a way to connect, then so can we. The journey to developing these skills starts here. Through challenges, Paul will uncover the paths to building relationships. In other words, every challenge brings an opening to grow. It ignites hope for better connections, understanding, and friendships. The desire for personal growth can lead to moments of surprising joy and mutual support. In the cafe, each person has a chance to let go of fears and embrace openness. As Paul took a deep breath at the cafe, a cloud of doubt hung over their mind. Suddenly, staying quiet felt easier than joining the others. Paul glanced at the groups laughing and enjoying themselves, wishing to be part of it all. But the feelings of self-doubt whispered that this would not happen. The scene so lively made Paul feel small and invisible. It was hard not to think about how others were connecting, while they felt blocked. Each attempt to speak felt like climbing a steep hill, exhausting and daunting. Everyone else seemed at ease. Paul wondered what was wrong with them. Was it luck or special skills that made others shine in social places? Paul remembered past mistakes that replayed in the mind. At other gatherings, words got stuck in the throat. There were times when Paul even stumbled in conversations. Calling friends was often easier than making new ones. The struggle of meeting new people was very real. Doubts became louder, drowning out hope. The heart raced with anxiety and fear. No one saw this unnoticed struggle within. As the moments passed, Paul stayed close to the cafe wall, nursing a drink. Even waiting felt uncomfortable. The urge to leave grew stronger. Yet something held Paul back. Perhaps it was the faint glow of hope. Deep inside, there was a part wishing to connect, to share, to laugh. This time would be different. It had to be. So Paul decided to take small steps. However, the pressure of the moment still loomed large. The quiet corner felt safer, even if lonely. The waiter offered a smile, which felt welcoming. For a moment, it sparked confidence. Could the warmth of a smile lead to bigger connections? Each sip of the drink became an attempt to muster courage. Paul thought about the past when someone had said, "Just be yourself." But how could someone be themselves when nerves screamed in doubt? In times like this, it felt better to blend in than to stand out. Everyone wants to fit in without attracting too much attention, right? At least that seemed to be the case at the moment. However, as Paul stood at the edge of the cafe, the story was still unwritten. That little spark deep inside slowly began to shine brighter. The heart began to beat to a different rhythm, a rhythm of hope. There was a realization that everyone brings something unique to the table. Perhaps things would not change overnight, but every small victory counted. Progress cannot be rushed. Each time may get a little easier to share. The cloud of anxiety still hovered, but the pull to connect grew stronger. Finally, Paul made a decision to take the first step. Holding back was not the way to more joyful moments. Stepping out of that comfort zone seemed crucial to brightening life. So, with that flicker of determination, their hands steadied, and Paul looked toward the others. The promise of connection waited just beyond the door of fear. A new path opened, revealing the exciting possibility of growth and brighter days. With a newfound flicker of courage, Paul stepped away from the cafe wall. Heart racing, they made their way toward a small group gathered near the window. The laughter felt warm, a contrast to the chill of self-doubt. Paul wanted to say hello, but the words got stuck. As friendly faces turned, an awkward silence loomed. Suddenly, a wave of fear washed over Paul. What if no one wanted to talk? What if the attempt ended in rejection? Paul's courage began to waver. Deciding to take a breath, Paul managed to introduce themselves. "Hi, I'm Paul. Nice to meet you," they said, the voice barely above a whisper. The group paused, and a smiling woman replied, "Great to meet you, Paul. We were just sharing funny work stories." However, just as a smile of hope appeared, the conversation shifted back to the laughter and jokes that filled the air. Paul felt like an outsider on the edge of the shore, watching everyone swim. As Paul stood there, it became clear that sharing in the funny moments was not so easy. When it was Paul's turn to tell a story, no words came. A blank mind greeted the eager smile of the group. Felt like all eyes were on Paul, waiting for something interesting. Seconds turned into what felt like hours. The pressure grew heavy like a weight on the chest. Instead of laughter, silence slipped in, and in that moment, the joy in the group faded just as quickly as it had come. Feeling the weight of failure, Paul attempted to change the subject. "Has anyone seen the new cafe down the street?" But the question hung awkwardly in the air. One person shrugged while the others moved back to their previous topic. Paul's heart sank further. Why did it feel so difficult to connect? Each attempt made Paul feel smaller, more invisible with each passing moment. The desire to disappear served as a relief from the growing tension. Turning away, Paul spent more time lingering by the drinks table, quietly sipping from a cup. Watching others share laughs made envy bubble up. They felt stuck between wanting to engage and carrying this awful sense of frustration. Even simple tasks like grabbing snacks became difficult, making every move feel monumental. Suddenly, leaving seemed more appealing than being part of the crowd. Just when Paul thought all was lost, the same friendly woman from before approached and asked if they wanted to join in a new joke game. It sounded fun, but Paul hesitated, feeling anxious again. What if the jokes become too difficult? How could they possibly fit in with all these witty people? A familiar trap of fear began to close around them. The choice was clear: step out in faith or stay safe in silence. Taking almost a full minute, Paul decided to jump in, hoping for something different this time. With uncertainty swirling inside, Paul nods and joins in. But as others began to tell jokes, a sense of worry returned. Bringing laughter seemed impossible. More slips of words and awkward pauses followed. As time went on, disappointment climbed higher. The embarrassment of feeling out of place hung like a dark cloud, keeping light at bay. The struggle to find one's voice became a rising tide, creating waves of tension and confusion. Just when Paul thought there might be a glimmer of acceptance, the fear of being uncomfortable seemed to wreck the hope they had. Would connecting always feel so challenging? The night felt long, but deep down, a spark of determination simmered to grow into something more. Even in the darkest moments, The will to push forward shone dimly but brightly. As the laughter in the cafe faded around Paul, a heavy stillness filled their heart. The attempts to connect had all gone wrong. It felt like the world was closing in, leaving Paul alone with disappointing feelings. In that moment of silence, all the doubts rushed forward again. Why can't it just be easy to make friends? Why was fitting in like climbing a mountain? It felt like a storm cloud refused to leave. Just when the weight felt too much to bear, Paul noticed the friendly woman who had approached earlier. Her eyes held kindness. She moved closer and said softly, "Hey, don't be too hard on yourself." With that simple phrase, Paul felt a small spark of hope. With a warm smile, the woman continued, "Sometimes, we all have a hard time connecting. It's normal. Trying is part of the journey." This advice struck deep within Paul. It was as if a light turned on. Maybe connecting with others did not just happen overnight. Maybe people needed time and understanding. Paul began to reflect on their past attempts. Instead of feeling like a failure, there was an urge to see those moments differently. What if imperfections were part of being human? It was okay to stutter or to take a moment to respond. Perhaps each social struggle was not just a setback but a chance to learn and grow. With renewed focus, Paul took a breath. The decisions now stood as stepping stones ahead, not walls blocking the path. It was a lighting moment of truth that filled the gap inside. From reflecting on deep feelings of inadequacy, a resolve began to build. Paul wanted to change. Improvement could start right now. It would be a challenging journey, but it felt necessary to try. The feelings of horror and isolation needed warmth and trust. "Thank you," Paul said, looking deep into the woman's compassionate eyes. "I will try." It became clear that to see progress, Paul had to embrace the messiness of the journey. Just being present, that was a start. Going with the flow mattered more than achieving perfection. Every moment shared with others ought to be a stepping stone toward connection. As the minutes went by, Paul exchanged glances with those in the cafe. Sure, there would still be uncomfortable silences, but not all moments needed to be perfect. Learning to laugh at mistakes could create a sense of lightness. Everyone laughed and stammered at times. There lay a truth in the shared experience. While overcoming fears could be overwhelming, support stood close. In this critical moment of self-reflection, Paul considered practical steps. It wasn't just washing away fear, but also working to cultivate interest in others. Maybe asking simple questions could transform confusion into connection. Finding common interests and laughs could lead to deeper relationships. In that moment, Paul made a decision to reach out, not just for personal gain, but to connect more genuinely with others. With a smile mentoring back, Paul turned toward the small group gathered nearby again. Yes, some fear remained beneath the surface, but determination shone brighter. The beginnings of change, sprinkled with curiosity, took hold, ready to see where it would lead. Taking one step into the unknown now felt more rewarding than trepidation. Maybe climbing that mountain of social challenges would someday become a new path to connect, and after all, everyone could use a friend. This was just the beginning. With a determined heart, Paul took a step forward, embracing the moment. The cafe buzzed with conversations, but this time, Paul felt different, emboldened by the realization of change. The choice to connect was not a heavy burden but a bright opportunity. Taking a deep breath, Paul chose to approach the table of coworkers once again, knowing that small, intentional steps could lead to bigger ones. "Hey everyone," Paul said, feeling the warmth of hope. "I heard you talking about funny moments at work. I wanted to share one too." The group turned with interested eyes. This simple invitation opened the door to sharing. Suddenly, Paul was no longer the wallflower watching from the side. The sparkle of excitement overshadowed lingering fear. As the laughter grew in the air, Paul told a light-hearted story about a time they spilled coffee on themselves during an important meeting. The initial anxiety softened. The group listened, leaning in. When the laughter followed, it felt like a wave of understanding washed over, building a bridge instead of creating walls. The connection simmered into something warm and inviting. In that moment, Paul remembered the advice shared earlier. This was the beauty of vulnerability. Everyone made mistakes, and feeling human brought people closer together. Each laugh seemed to break down more walls, creating space for more conversations. Encouraged by shared laughter, Paul looked around and made eye contact with each person at the table. Those little moments felt vital. Soon after telling their story, Paul tuned in to hear others share theirs. Listening became real practice. Each word from the others sparked interest within. Questions followed, showing curiosity instead of pressure. How did you handle it? Or what happened after that? Conversations swirled like falling leaves, and Paul felt included. As Paul participated, there was a conscious effort to listen actively. This meant making a choice to focus on the stories of others. Nodding and smiling while another spoke, Paul found joy in that newfound practice. This was a breath of fresh air, a shift from running in fear to joining in the fun. Walking beside friends in conversation was now a shared escape, fulfilling a deep desire within. The group slowly opened to Paul's presence. Not only was conversation surrounding them, but there were real smiles and encouragement lighting the atmosphere. Each passing minute felt familiar, yet the relief of understanding replaced tension slowly like rays of sunlight creeping through clouds. Though challenges still existed, the idea of fitting in now seemed achievable. Each shared story turned the social landscape vivid and rich. Paul felt proud for trying these new skills in real life. These changes began from small actions, reaching out, smiling more, and being willing to connect. Each task may have seemed small, like candles flickering in darkness, but together, they guided the way home. With each interaction, the doubts began to shrink. Though tiny challenges remained, momentum continued to swell like gentle waves rolling onto shore. Fear no longer loomed over Paul. It began to deflate. Each deliberate step fueled hope as more moments unfolded. Even if the journey was just beginning, the urge to connect felt lighter. The first turn excited the heart. Every small talk, laugh, and story created pathways for better moments ahead. Sitting among the group, Paul felt proud. Embracing imperfection opened doors to embrace who they are. In the end, growth wasn't about needing to impress but about the art of connection. An adventure that started with just one simple choice: following action. As days turned into weeks, Paul continued to practice the social skills learned at the cafe. Every day felt like a new opportunity to grow. With each conversation, Paul sensed a wave of confidence building inside. Meeting colleagues in the break room became less daunting. Simple hellos turned into longer chats about life, hobbies, and work. Gradually, the fear of awkwardness faded. The air felt lighter, and a sense of belonging began to grow. Paul focused on active listening, eagerly discovering stories as coworkers shared their experiences. Nodding along and asking questions helped form solid connections. By valuing others' stories, Paul's own feelings about vulnerability shifted positively. Conversations became less about performative small talk. They transformed into avenues of authenticity. Each interaction stirred excitement. The natural rhythm of discussion created a bright space, and everyone felt more like friends than just colleagues. One afternoon, Paul joined a group at a park during lunch hour. The sunlight shined bright, and conversation flourished at the table. Recalling those simple jokes shared before, Paul decided to join in with some humor. A gentle chuckle arose from the group, but this time it felt easier. It was no longer a fearful dive into the deep end. Rather, it became like stepping onto a sturdy boat moving smoothly on the water. Sharing laughter brought friends together. Their smiles reflected growth and fun. Reflection became a part of Paul's daily routine. At night, they made time to think about the day. Recognizing those joyful moments of success helped in appreciation. Instead of focusing on the few stumbles made, Paul chose to appreciate the moments that felt right. Remembering how far they had come filled Paul with pride. If progress could happen weekly, imagine where time could lead. Seeing how talk with new acquaintances now flowed into regions of comfort filled Paul with joy. Noticeable improvement felt tangible and real. When meeting strangers, Paul found conversations blossoming with ease. Whether at stores or parks, a friendly smile or warm greeting became a beautiful habit. Slowly, Paul learned to create connections that sparked joy. Talking to the barista became more engaging. Asking how their day was going opened doors to delightful exchanges. Simple interactions felt like stepping stones navigating an inviting river instead of facing a huge ocean alone. These small instances snowballed into bright moments of connection every single day. With gradual improvements came a new perspective. Paul realized relationships, whether they were with colleagues at work or casually meeting new faces, felt deeper and more genuine. Authenticity created bonds that were built upon trust, laughter, and support. Things were evolving both emotionally and socially. Encouraged by this change, Paul embraced the future. The support of others and the warmth spread were no longer daunting obstacles but rather joyful bridges to be crossed. Every effort counted. Each social skill applied in the real world felt rewarding for the heart and mind. Practicing was not just transforming actions. It was also slowly changing the way Paul viewed connections and relationships. With gratitude at the forefront, Paul looked forward to tomorrow. The mindset was simple yet powerful. Change was possible, and every small ache or effort would lead to a deeper adventure. Every new interaction added color to what was once gray. Hope tingled in the air, reflecting potential in changing parts of life. The ongoing journey offered endless opportunities to connect authentically and build genuine friendships. All that was needed was the willingness to embrace these moments and keep moving forward. In the days that followed, Paul began to feel stronger and more confident. With these new skills came more than just small talk. A deeper awareness of personal boundaries was emerging. Paul noticed that, in the workplace, there was an uncomfortable feeling around Robert, the boss. Robert often criticized employees publicly. Each negative comment felt like salt on a wound. Paul observed how the team went quiet whenever Robert entered. The vibe in the office built an unwelcoming atmosphere, and it felt wrong. People were unhappy, but no one spoke up. Determined not to let fear silence them, Paul decided that silence was no longer an option. With nerves of steel began to rise, and deep breaths guided the heart. It was time to stand up. The glow of courage from earlier felt like light filling a dark room. Paul took action, planning a meeting with Robert after work. As Paul approached the time, the weighty feelings surged within. Doubts played tricks, whispering that this could lead to trouble. Yet, the newfound resolve kept pushing forward. That afternoon, when Paul sat down in the meeting room, Robert walked in with a neutral expression. "What do you want to discuss?" he asked in a brusque tone. With gulping breaths, Paul began, "I wanted to talk about how comments affect morale." The words flowed out with more strength than expected. People often feel upset or embarrassed when criticized publicly. It could help a lot if we shifted to a supportive approach instead. Although shaky, Paul felt proud of being direct. Initially, Robert frowned in response, clearly surprised. "You're too sensitive, Paul. Work is not always warm and fuzzy. It's a tough world out there." The dismissive tone pierced like an arrow aimed straight at the heart. But before doubt crept back in, Paul maintained composure. "We can be honest without being harsh. Encouragement helps everyone grow." The conviction behind Paul's words felt empowering. The staff nearby must have sensed the intensity of the meeting. A few listened closely, curious to see how Robert would react. When he saw the faces of other employees waiting for a response, something shifted within him. Recognizing the unease, Robert's guard lowered, though only slightly. There was a challenge in Paul's words, and the room grew heavy with tension. It was as if the breath of courage interrupted the cycle of negativity. The conversation challenged others to stand tall and recognize boundaries, too. After a moment, Robert simply shrugged. "If you think that's best, we can try respecting each other more." With that, the feelings hung uneasily in the air. However, Paul sensed a wave of hope swell among colleagues watching. The visible support began to take shape in small nods and subtle smiles, reassuring expressions calling for change. In the following days, gradual shifts were tangible. Others started voicing opinions during meetings, inspired by Paul's words. They felt encouraged to share thoughts openly. Paul amazed themselves with the transformation of atmosphere. Little by little, positivity began to shine brighter. However, some tension still remained. Not everyone welcomed the new dynamic. A few resistant voices questioned these changes, whispering that the office was becoming too soft. But the more Paul navigated these conversations, the more clarity emerged. Standing up for themselves laid a foundation for others to rise alongside. It reminded everyone that a supportive environment could coexist with work demands. Days later, when looking around the office, Paul saw something beautiful unfold. Support, encouragement, and confidence blossomed openly at work. The change felt small yet massive in the scope of growth. Everyone participated in building an empowered office environment. And within, Paul realized pushing boundaries helped turn whispers into resounding voices, igniting inspiration to forge ahead. As the days passed, the new atmosphere at work continued to evolve. Paul felt proud of the tiny changes around them. Colleagues started supporting one another openly, and the office buzzed with more laughter. One afternoon, Paul prepared for a team meeting to present an important project they had been working hard on. Everyone was excited, and this felt like a moment of truth. However, just before the meeting started, Robert walked in with an intense look on his face. Robert made a few dismissive remarks before the meeting began, aiming to put pressure on Paul. "I hope you prepared something impressive. We need real results," he said, crossing his arms. Though his words were sharp, Paul stood their ground. This time, the pressure felt less controlling. A sense of calm filled the room. Paul simply replied, "We will show good results. I look forward to sharing progress with you." As Paul spoke, Sarah, a colleague sitting nearby, chimed in. "We all know Paul has worked hard on this." Her voice held a sense of strength. "They have led us with direction, and we are all excited to show the team." A wave of supportive murmurs went around the room. Seeing someone stand up for them lit a smile on Paul's face. It was a reminder of the change they were creating together. That moment strengthened the bond within the team. When it was finally time for the presentation, Paul opened with confidence. "Thank you, everyone, for being here." Each slide showed the progress made, emphasizing team effort, formula-driven task growth, and shared laughter echoed during development. Other team members actively joined the discussion, and every interaction felt empowering. A culture of support grew like sunlight over time, revealing potential where shadows once cast doubt. After the presentation, the team celebrated. Contributions flowed in from everyone, fostering a sense of pride. Instead of clinging to uncertainty, Paul felt encouraged. Recognizing that they were not alone made each struggle feel lighter and easier to bear. The presentation hadn't just been a task. It was a chance to connect as a team. The air felt electric, fueling growth across the company. Later, after basking in the joy of success, Paul took a moment to reflect. The feeling of achievement came not just from hitting goals, but also from realizing the change was, in fact, real. Standing strong despite resistance brought a sense of self-acceptance. Personal growth meant something deeply valued now. Each small win contributed to the overall well-being in the workplace, urging other team members to unite. Feeling proud of taking some small but significant steps forward together cemented their path to resilience. Paul began to see how setting boundaries positively reshaped interactions. It was contagious. When they encouraged collaboration and support, it turned up the volume on empowerment for everyone involved. Each action they took opened doors to continuous feedback and honesty without hesitation. It became clear to Paul that they had taken practical steps to overcome adversity. The new mental map involved offering an encouraging smile during daily routines while acknowledging limits with kindness. From here on, even though challenges lay ahead, Paul felt prepared. Happiness bloomed from personal achievements and blossomed into appreciating teamwork's effects. These seeds of change blossomed deeply rooted with confidence. With every conversation or challenge, the commitment to support became stronger. The initial fear began to fade, marking paths leading toward valuable insights. As small wins accumulate, they urged everyone to shift focus into more success, bridging friendships through genuine connection. The ripple effects of this progress brought power and joy, marking the beautiful transition forward. Resolution. As the weeks went by, Paul noticed a remarkable shift in their social life. Those feelings of doubt and anxiety began to melt away, replaced by confidence and warmth. No longer did Paul feel like an outsider at work. Rather, strong relationships developed. Colleagues greeted one another with smiles and connections ran deep. Team meetings turned into collaborative spaces full of ideas, laughter, and respect. With each small contribution, Paul felt secure, knowing their voice mattered. During lunchtime, Paul relished the joyful atmosphere of conversations around the table. Friends shared stories, and ideas flowed freely while everyone enjoyed a meal together. Each lunch break felt like a celebration of community, deepening bonds that went beyond work tasks. Paul participated easily in conversations instead of lingering quietly in the background. These simple connections brought warmth and a sense of belonging that once felt out of reach. It was now evident that meaningful relationships began with trust and strong communication. Moreover, Paul embraced the lessons learned during the journey. Setting boundaries didn't just enhance feelings of safety. They allowed space within the team to flourish. It opened doors to create an emotional steel net where people shared support and compassion instead of fear. This empowering experience made success shine clearer. When individuals struggled, Paul took time to offer compassion, knowing how much those encouraging words mattered. The feeling of empowerment sparked within, reminding everyone they could uplift each other. In Paul's personal life, changes began radiating positive effects, too. Friends outside of work began to notice this internal growth. The newfound mentality reflected love and joy, further deepening personal connections. The shy nature began falling away like autumn leaves, replaced with an eagerness to engage in social situations. Dates turned bright as Paul discovered that authentic conversations created stronger foundations. Instead of counting every mistake made in interactions, focus shifted. Listening, understanding, and sharing began at the core. Finding hobbies to explore together encouraged deeper bonds. Whether chatting about favorite books, discussing music, or cooking together, real friendships flourished with ease. Moments transformed from small surface-level connections into something rich and profound, much like planting seeds that sprouted into colorful blossoms. Days were filled with laughter, and life no longer seemed daunting. Now, it felt exhilarating to engage with others. Paul learned the true value of social skills. It was more than just avoiding awkwardness. It fueled connections and understanding. As each relationship blossomed, confidence built up a strong foundation. It sent ripples of positivity reinforcing the budding relationships throughout their life. Every small effort by finding common ground transformed circles into tight-knit groups rooted in empathy and respect. Moving forward, Paul understood the importance of nurturing these skills. Appreciation naturally led to the foundation of support at work and home. They realized their ability could build brighter moments through connection and uplifting encouragement. Facing challenges head-on allowed fear to shift into excitement and empowerment. Today, Paul stands taller both at work and in life. The journey to self-acceptance opened new doors while fostering healthy emotional spaces. Positive thinking replaced doubt, reminding everyone they possess the skills needed for lasting change. Social skills matter immensely, revealing the beautiful journey of connection, understanding, and humanity. With confidence as a guide, building relationships transformed into something extraordinary, enhancing life, giving strength, and breathing love into their social world. As Paul stepped into the new month, a sense of renewal filled the air. The future glimmered with promise. Ideas about a potential new job started to swirl in Paul's mind. With confidence growing from previous experiences, applying for new positions felt exciting rather than intimidating. The skills learned during this journey empowered Paul to see possibilities beyond the current workplace. One day, Paul saw a job advertisement online. It was for a role that combined creativity and collaboration, just what Paul had dreamed of. Without overthinking, Paul immediately decided to apply. This time, the excitement overshadowed any fear of failure. Armed with a polished resume reflecting growth and achievements, Paul clicked the submit button with a huge smile. This wasn't just an application. It marked a new chapter in the journey. During the interview process, Paul showcased the confidence built through experiences at the current job. When asked about teamwork, Paul shared stories of the supportive atmosphere created in the office. Each reply highlighted the newfound skills in effective communication. These weren't just words but real moments that proved growth was possible. Instead of feeling pressured, Paul felt alive with a sense of purpose, which energized the room. While preparing for potential success, Paul remembered the importance of a healthy mindset. Embracing daily reflections through journaling became a routine. Documenting thoughts reflected a grateful heart. This simple act allowed Paul to track progress while cultivating a positive outlook on life. By writing down affirmations and breakthroughs, each day glimmered brightly in the pages of the journal. Balancing a busy routine encouraged Paul to keep pushing forward. Alongside the job search, Paul made time for hobbies like painting and exploring nature. Art became an avenue for self-expression, letting creativity flow freely. The energy gained offered peace, enriching every aspect of life. Finding a balance between work, relationships, and personal interests greatly elevated emotional well-being. Sharing the artistic journey with friends reinforced connections. Their support spread positivity around. Finally, after several interviews, the moment arrived. Paul received a phone call with great news. An offer had been made for the new role. The joy felt nearly overwhelming, exploding like fireworks across the sky. All the effort paid off, and this amazing achievement was not only Paul's alone. The relationships built at the workplace championed a community that supported success. As new doors opened, Paul recalled how vital the journey had been. Each step formed an understanding of personal value. Knowing the power of lifting others soaked deep within, making future endeavors brighter. Challenges always arise, but having skills made navigating through bumps easier. In that moment of victory, Paul realized the adventure continued. Moving into the new role brought opportunities for even deeper connections. The relationship tools acquired allowed Paul to create profound bonds with new colleagues. The excitement of facing this fresh start instilled enthusiasm for what lay ahead. Empowered by newfound skills and strong relationships, Paul stepped confidently into the future. As it unfolded, the journey promised challenges and opportunities, further refining growth and deeper connections. With hope paving the way, simple steps blended into a brighter horizon where everything began. A place filled with possibility, transformation, and lasting connections. Embracing each challenge meant embracing life itself, ready for any twists and turns ahead. The story would not stop here, and Paul was prepared to live every moment fully.